Welcome, everybody. I'm really excited today to be talking about methylate blue, a product that myself and my dear colleague and friend, Dr. Joel Bohemier, and I formulated to address what we would like to describe as the energy crisis, which I think everyone that's on this, video live stream will understand is a big problem because if you think about it, recently, Joao was thinking about how coffee houses, which I love because they're like the secular place where people convene and connect and you do work there and you have conversations. They're like the modern equivalent of opium dens because people are so addicted. It's a beautiful thing. I love coffee myself, but if I find myself drinking it daily, it is absolutely bankrupting my energy reserves. And people don't realize this fully. And we've tried to educate, the world on this topic since a decade ago, is that coffee has a morphine-like compound in it. So people are like, oh, it's caffeine. I love it. That's why, I drink coffee. No, actually, you're kind of like addicted to a narcotic. And it doesn't take away from the joys of coffee. It just helps you appreciate that when we go for that cup or roll out of bed tired and first thing you think about is coffee, it's because you're addicted to it. It's not really getting to the root cause. And I love talking to you about this topic, Joelle, because you are the cleanest, like most I mean, in fact, I think just for people that are new to this topic, Joelle came over to my place a few months ago, and I think it was like the first or second cup of coffee that you ever had. I brought you to the dark side, and you didn't have another cup the next day because you're not an
Yeah.
addictive type. But the point of this whole conversation is to bring people an awareness of what it is that's actually causing you to not live, a life full of energy and where you find yourself doing things that are kind of self-destructive. So I'm going to actually pass it right on to you, Joelle, because you're also a clinician and you not only use the product personally with great benefit, but you've already seen how it's affected others, and especially when it comes to the energy crisis.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that, Sarah. Methylate blue, I think, is an answer to so many people's energy, lack of energy. And we try and compensate through whether it's coffee for some people, for a lot of people, actually, it's coffee, whether it's nicotine for others, whether it's sugar for others and food, and they just try and keep eating to give themselves a short high. Or whether it's, and the name kind of is taken slightly and it's a play on methylene blue, which is the coal tar derivative that a lot of biohackers are using to try and gain energy. But ultimately, it's because people are fatigued nowadays. It's because people have brain fog nowadays. It's because people don't have the get up and go that they used to. And this is afflicting a lot of people. I've been practicing now for 26 years. And, if you ask me about energy levels and kind of the current crisis of how the current crisis compares to 25 years, 26 years ago, I would say it's not even close. Like 26 years ago, it was 60-year-olds who were asking questions about energy. And now it's teenagers, it's 20-year-olds, it's 30-year-olds, it's 40-year-olds, it's 50-year-olds, it's 60-year-olds, it's 70-year-olds. Everybody's asking about energy issue and because they have them, because we're fatigued, we're stressed, we're worn out, we have so many oxidative stresses in our lives. And so you and I, put our heads together and we came up with this methylate blue as one of the important solutions to help the energy, powerhouses, the mitochondrias of the cells, in order for your body to be able to create its own energy naturally, not to steal from substances, not to steal from caffeine, from nicotine, not to steal from sugar, which gives you potentially a boost and then a crash. And then you need the hit again, and then a crash. And then you need the hit again, and then a crash. And then you need more hit to get the same level of energy over time. So if you're the type of person who wakes up in the morning and you need a cup of coffee to just like get going, that's a major sign of an energy crisis. If you're the type of person who can't go a meal, like skip a meal and like fast, do intermittent fasting, for example, because you get the shakes and you get tired and you get brain fog, it's a major sign of an energy crisis, right? And so
Mhm.
many people have this. And so I do believe this is a really elegant solution, and why we created methylate blue is for this reason. Right? Do you want to expand on some of the dangers of the other kind of crutches that we use in society nowadays?
Yeah, and the thing about what you bring up is that like nicotine's a good example. It gives you an immediate dopaminergic effect. So and sugar's the same, actually. They're like dopamine receptors, right? Essentially on your tongue, that when you have sugar, it basically stimulates a very similar pathway. And then even fructose, people don't realize this, but it is actually one of the things that participates in the hedonic pathways in the body, just like alcohol, the same pathway in the liver that basically tries to address fructose and I'm not talking from whole fruit. I'm talking about, isolated, like high
Yeah.
fructose corn syrup, is the
Mhm.
same pathway as alcohol. And so caffeine does the same thing. And essentially, we're living in a culture that is essentially an addiction-based culture, and that goes down to, casein in cow's milk has caseomorphin, and then you have the gluten exorphins and gliadorphin in wheat. So if you really look at the conventional lifestyle and diet, it's like one addictive cycle after another. So what we wanted to do is to address the underlying issue, which is this exhaustion and fatigue caused,
Yes.
right? Like stimulants are literally, it comes from the root word for pricking yourself, like actually a form of like micro self-injury, because it's like whipping the adrenals. You get the adrenal sympathetic pull of the nervous system, right? That kind of recruits you into an emergency state so you can go address, things that you need to do in this dog eats dog world. But the parasympathetic side gets completely thrown under the bus. And over time, you end up, like you said, needing higher and higher, more addictive doses. So, what we thought about was how do we provide the body the foundational ingredients needed to produce the kind of energy that when you scale it up, it's a calm, focused, and sustainable effect that then translates into better work, better relationships, better sleep, because you're not sacrificing your sleep for the 1 or 2 cups of coffee earlier in the day.
Yeah, and obviously the no brain fog's a big one too for concentration and stuff because your brain uses so much energy. I mean, that's extremely important. The other one that's I think important to discuss is the methylene blue, right? Which is like the biohackers big kind of thrust in the last few years is to put this blue pigment, a coal tar derivative, which is a chemical. It's actually a medication as well, with a list of side effects. One of which is serotonin syndrome. And, because what it does is it basically blocks the degradation of serotonin. So you get a bunch of serotonin in your body, and that leads to, not being able to think. That leads to high blood pressure. It leads to like shaking. It leads to like kind of freak out anxiety a little bit, those types of symptoms. Yet so many people, yeah, kind of in our space there are all about it. And I feel like a lot of people, and some people will get, short-term benefits from this kind of stuff. But again, you're taking a medication to try and stimulate your body as opposed to using like a whole food supplement designed to get to the actual powerhouse, the real energy producer of the cell, which is the mitochondria. And that's what we're doing with methylate blue. Now, I know we're sensitive because a lot of our friends have promoted or taken methylene blue, but I mean, both you and I have never tried it just based on, basic principles. Like I prefer not to put drugs in my body or chemicals in my body, and methylene blue is a chemical. Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so interesting because the pharmaceutical industrial complex really was born through the discovery that certain synthetic dyes actually had pharmacologically active effects. And it was in 1876 that they accidentally discovered that this dye was actually capable of, for example, having anti-malarial effects. But consider that anti-malarial drugs are some of the most poisonous and toxic of all drugs and have long-term adverse effects on physiology, including psychiatric issues. And the thing about this chemical compound is that it is a monoamine amine inhibitor, which is why it's so dangerous for those who, for example, are already on SSRIs, because you can end up with serotonin syndrome. And there are other really serious effects. And ironically, it's not even approved as a dietary supplement. It's really used as a drug. And it was, again, at the birth of the whole pharmaceutical industry. So, the trend to use it to try to enhance your longevity or to stimulate mitochondrial function is really probably misguided, and especially since there's a lot of evidence that this stuff actually dyes your internal organs. There are autopsy, studies have been done that show that it stains the tissues red, I mean blue. So, it was something that we looked at and we were kind of surprised because if you think about MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, one of the primary targets was eliminating coal tar derived red dye from the food supply because it's known
Yeah.
to have potential carcinogenic properties and also psychoactive properties. People don't realize this, but coal tar dyes were actually eliminated in the European Union because, and that's like, I think, 500 million people, because it was known to cause psychiatric issues, including things like attention deficit disorder. So the irony is that, some of the very folks that are, proposing we should eliminate those things from our food supply are still using it. They got the blue tongues. And one thing to keep in mind too is that the placebo effect is so powerful that if you think something is good for you, it could be a drug, maybe you're enrolled in a clinical trial and you're in the active placebo group and you end up getting this toxic effect from the intervention. They found that people actually do get some benefit because they believe it's good for them. So even those who are using it, I'm not taking away the fact that some claim their energy increases and they've seen all these benefits. There may be cases where you actually do see a benefit, but I believe that most of that is psychogenic and they're long-term unintended adverse effects of any intervention that involves what we would describe as a xenobiotic compound, right? It's foreign to our biology. Xeno, foreign, it's not biologically appropriate, whereas we're using what we call biological blue. Phycocyanin is the most natural thing that you could put into your body because it's been in the human diet since the beginning of time. And the most amazing thing is that it actually has this chromophore capability, which is another way of saying it's able to take light. It could be near infrared, infrared light, and it will help you to increase mitochondrial function based on the fact that it is very similar to your own endogenous, what's called biliverdin. It's basically like a bile salt. We produce it ourselves. It's a powerful endogenous antioxidant. And phycocyaninobilin is almost identical. It's like as similar as hemoglobin and chlorophyll. It's only different with the fact that, hemoglobin has iron in the center and magnesium has magnesium in the center. That's another amazing poetic, fact which went into our formulation. Like nature's been doing it since the beginning of time. Why don't we just utilize what nature's provided to us because our body understands it?
Yeah, and I'm showing the an actual pill of the methylate blue, and you can see it is blue, right? But this isn't colored from methylene blue, a fake dye. This is actually from a real food source. So where does the blue in our methylate blue come from as opposed to a coal tar derivative?
So we use an organic spirulina that has blue phycocyanin, and then we also have a special extract of it to get it up to a level where it makes sense that it would activate the NRF2 system, which is our body's own innate antioxidant system. So that's why people take vitamin C and E, and A. They want to get an antioxidant effect, but nature provided a means within our own body. The only thing is unless you have that signaling ingredient in your diet, you can't activate those systems effectively. It's a basic deficiency that you'll never see on a nutrition fact label because it's not acknowledged to be essential. That said, if it's been in our diet forever and it is something that overlaps with our body's own, biomolecular geometry, it makes sense that there would be such a profound set of studies. If you look at Green Med Info, we actually did a full literature review on all the studies on phycocyanins potential benefits, and this is based on, preclinical research. You're not going to get billions of dollars that flow into validating in a human clinical trial compounds like this, but that doesn't stop us because we're doing frontier, formulation, just like we do frontier reporting on Green Med Info. If we see something that's exciting, it makes sense, we want people to at least know about it. But based on the research that's already been happening for about 20 years, it's already been studied for 120 different health conditions. It also exhibits 71 different pharmacological actions that this compound modulates. And I was pretty surprised to find that because it's been, research for 20 years. There's some substances that's been over 100. So, these aren't claims we're making. It's that the research community itself has been so fascinated with the compound that I think we're at the point now where we can at least say, hey, if it's found in a food like spirulina, and people are being told, hey, take this synthetic coal derivative that has a spectrum of known side effects, it might make sense to use the food, because nature delivers it to us that way. Very simple idea.
Yeah, another compound we have is chlorophyll in it. You want to describe the benefits of chlorophyll?
Yeah, chlorophyll is one of my
It's-
favorites
Yeah,
because
I know it is. That's why I'm setting you up for this one because I know you love
Man,
this.
yeah,
Yeah.
that wasn't a planted question at all. So
No, no, no.
yeah, it's great. So yeah, the thing about chlorophyll that's so amazing is that in 2012, a dramatic new discovery was made, which is essentially chlorophyll A, when consumed, okay, and that comes from anything green. You could eat a Romanesco cabbage, my favorite, right? It's the cover of the book, the fractal geometry. That chlorophyll, it's metabolized into a compound that then goes into the mitochondria and then helps it capture the
Right.
photonic energy. So it enables us to basically exhibit what is known as photoheterotrophic behavior. So conventional taxonomies say that, oh, we're animals, we're autotrophs, right? I'm sorry, we're heterotrophs. We have to eat other things in order to survive. We're not autotrophs that just sit there and take in the sun. Well, this study just completely destroyed that, misconception. So humans have the capability through the consumption of chlorophyll to optimize mitochondrial function, increase ATP production, while at the same time increasing longevity. This was an animal study that actually used the pig model, which is the closest thing to humans physiologically. And it found that when exposed to sunlight, not only did it increase the efficiency and the energy production of mitochondria, but it also generated increased longevity without the expected increased photooxidation effects, which happen when sunlight's involved. So it actually worked almost like internal sunscreen and it increased energy. And the cool thing about this is when we came up with the methylate blue product, we really wanted to at least overlap with the promised benefits of methylene blue. And it turns out that the absorption spectrum, when you combine chlorophyll A with phycocyanin, is so much broader because essentially there is this red band, which is why red light is excellent to use as a photodynamic enhancer, that chlorophyll A peaks within at 430 nanometers. And then you have the methylene blue peak, which is at 668. But it turns out phycocyanin also peaks at 660, well, I'm sorry, 620, but chlorophyll A peaks at 662. So you basically are going into the blue band as well. So from 430 to 662 versus methylene blue, which is just 668. So we basically designed a product that should enable you to absorb a larger spectrum of that energy in our environment that then can help to convert to metabolic energy. And that's the way nature designed us. So essentially, you're getting the best of both worlds. It's not a chemical, it is biologically the thing that you would have consumed in certain foods since the beginning of time. And that is what translates into that cleaner, more sustainable energy without any of the downsides.
Yeah, and that's so important. And maybe I'll translate that for um, normal people who understand just basic English. Because ultimately, what Sarah's saying is that the mitochondria is sensitive to light, and light from the sun will affect the mitochondria positively. and help to create more energy in your body. So there's different spectrums of light, and the reason we have methylate blue is because the blue light will be absorbed in the mitochondria once we put these chlorophylls and phycocyanins in our body to help the mitochondria create more energy. So it's all about clean energy production at the source of energy production in the cell, which is the mitochondria, right? Other, and so the other, let's talk about other ingredients, unless you want to continue on that topic. I think other
Yeah.
ingredients include methylated B vitamins, right? So why methylated, or if you want me to answer, I'm happy to answer. Why methylated and why B vitamins?
Yeah, so the B vitamins are essential for energy production. Like
Yeah.
anyone who's ever, gone to a health food store and asked, "Hey, what can I do naturally for energy?" B complex is considered one of the safest approaches. Now, we've always loved whole food sources because they have the activated forms. Many B vitamins today are produced in basically chemical vats. And if you look at, for example, cyanocobalamin, it contains cyanide, a negligible amount, not enough to hurt you. But unfortunately, it can't be utilized to perform one of the basic functions, which is to provide the methyl group so that it can then help with things like producing, well, the methylation pathway is essential, for example, in detoxifying your body, which is ironic because those who have been on methylene blue, technically one of the ways you can detox from it is using methylation enhancement. The other thing is, of course, the whole field of nutrigenomics and epigenetics depends on having adequate methyl donors, which are delivered through B vitamins in order to silence certain genes that, when overexpressed, can cause, abnormal physiology or suboptimal physiological expression. So that's why the MFTHR mutation. It's known as a single nucleotide polymorphism. It's not as scary as it sounds. Let's just say there's variations throughout populations where most people have at least some variation of the inability to convert folic acid to the active form, which is what we're using in a product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's like some research shows 40% of the population have big time trouble, up to 60% of the population have trouble with methylation. And that's why when you use a whole food supplement like we do, it's already methylated for you. So you're
Mhm.
you're not having to steal methyl groups and attach them to B vitamins in order to be able to utilize them. And we utilize those as coenzymes in like literally the reaction needed to create energy inside the mitochondria. So, they're used at the Krebs cycle level. They're even used at the electron transport level. So these are extremely important for the creation of energy. Basic creation of energy is methylated vitamins, and a lot of people have trouble with methylation. So we've solved that with
Yeah.
this product as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that when people are looking at, for example, adrenal fatigue, because people live in a sort of upregulated fight or flight state just to try to get through their day, which is why they're constantly whipping their adrenal glands with the next stimulant and sometimes this is one interesting thing you probably know about, Joelle, but people will literally get into fights because it stimulates their anger response in order for them to feel alive because people are so darn exhausted. When someone's really exhausted, they get really cranky and they're more
Yes.
prone to get it right. And it's a sort of dysregulated attempt to balance things in their life. And sometimes something as simple as a good B complex with the proper forms will help them to produce more of the essential hormones they need. So they're not, for example, women are constantly stealing from their ovaries the progesterone needed to keep high levels of cortisol going. And so over time, that leads to enhanced, perimenopause will come sooner, for example. It can be reversed. Again, people use nutritional interventions, they use pomegranate, things to help with their ovaries. So no one here that has that issue should be concerned. There's always something you can do. But one of the safest ways to do this is to use the proper forms of the B vitamins. Now, just a quick tip out there, if you're not already eating nutritional yeast, that is one of the best ways to get it from food, but it doesn't hurt to get the forms added in a daily supplement that your body can utilize immediately because they're water soluble. So that's another benefit is that, some people are like, let me take this to my doctor. Is it safe? And I'm always scratching my head. I'm like, wow, this is food. This is what you need daily. It's water soluble. There shouldn't be an issue there, right? Um,
Correct.
and the other thing that's really exciting, because the thing is the Krebs cycle has four major complexes that are activated in order for you to be able to produce those free flows of electrons that then convert to you really feeling energy. And we're using a fermented form of nicotinamide. And that is the form that's the precursor to NAD plus, which is established to be the first line in the four complexes to help to produce that energy. Some people are taking very elaborate formulas in order to just focus on that one piece, but we wanted to make sure the product had every major, sort of foundation stone so that your cells, which contain quadrillions of mitochondria, I mean, it's insane, they have such the ability to produce energy at scale if you give them the right ingredients.
Yeah, and nicotinamide, just for those of you who don't know, is not nicotine, although it has the same root word.
Yeah.
This is an active form of vitamin B3, and it's absolutely necessary in order, like Sarah was saying, in the electron transport chain to actually donate electrons in a very clean and flowing manner. You need that B3 there, that nicotinamide. And so we have it fermented because it's just way easier to absorb and way easier to get it into the cell for it to be active inside your mitochondria. So, I mean, we've looked at all of those, all of the different possibilities, and this is the best possible form to be absorbed into your cell, into your mitochondria, to be used as an electron donator. So you can create that pump at the membrane level and create actual ATP, which is energy in the body.
Yeah, what I love too about natural approaches to optimizing physiology is that methylation, I can't overemphasize this enough, is essential in order for you to have a healthy epigenome. So people focus on the protein coding genes, right? There's only 23,000 of them. Earthworms have about the same amount, and we are far more complex, right, physiologically. So why is that? Because most of what at least the first phase of understanding genetics looked at was just that part of the equation. And then they threw away the rest, which is about 98% of the genome, and said it's just
Dark
non-coding
matter.
junk. Yeah,
Yeah.
dark matter. And the dark matter is transcribed into RNAs. And the RNAs are essentially where most of the magic happens physiologically. But if they don't have the silencing sort of framework, which depends on methylation, then they can run amok. So methylation is the way in which your epigenome stays intact and starts to express the optimal blueprint of health. And that is something that's rarely talked about because even today, everyone's focused on protein coding genes and they tell us almost nothing about how our actual physiology works in real time. So that was another thing about why this product for us was so exciting. And it's in the name, right? It's methylate blue for a reason. People who are looking for the promised land of methylene blue, right? They're always feeling like, oh, when is it really going to kick in? When am I going to get all these promised benefits? Well, there's nothing there that's actually feeding at the ground level the mitochondria in a way that would produce that sustainable result. I just don't see how it's possible with a coal tar derivative.
Yeah. And the other ingredient I wanted to discuss was the peptide powered minerals. And why would we add minerals to methylate mitochondrial kind of mix like that supplement?
This is like the key piece. I'm so glad you asked that question
Yeah.
because we know, right, since I think it was 1930, Congress did some assessment on the soils in this country and they found that there's just not the mineral basis for health. Like everything produced in that soil outside of the rare permaculture or biodynamic farm is going to be deficient in the minerals needed in order to activate all of the enzyme systems. We are just essentially on some level a bag of enzymes. Now, when you add a little bit of a mineral that you have to be healthy, whether it be selenium or maybe it's a little bit of magnesium in the proper form, those enzyme systems exponentiate the effectiveness of their activity. If you don't have the minerals, it's extremely hard to do that. The difference, though, is almost every supplement on the market today takes inorganic minerals, some of which are actually known to be toxic. Look at cupric sulfate. It's used as an aquicide and like for the green slime in ponds. Like it's what you would call pesticide. They put it in supplements. They say it's a great source of copper. Or look at sodium selenite. It's literally used as a chemotherapy because it is that toxic to certain cells. Now, it has value, but it has a lot of downsides. What we've done is we use a proprietary process to grow the minerals in spirulina, which adds these peptides, which are short chains of amino acids that have the proper folding structure because people don't realize this. Primary chains of amino acids are only the primary structural layer for protein folding. There are several other layers, right? There's secondary, tertiary, quaternary folding states. There's an infinite number of information in the folding state itself, such that Levinthal's paradox basically says that a primary amino acid sequence has an infinite number of folding states it can assume, but there's only one right one. It's called its native conformation. And it takes almost infinite information to get to that one state because it could have gone to any other folding state. My point, to make this simple, is that nature provided the mineral in the proper form by binding it to what's known as a protein chaperone. The spirulina provides the chaperone and helps it deliver to exactly the right place in your body. And no other system that I know has that ability. Now, they've tried with things like glycinate, which is a very small amino acid. You bind it to magnesium, another mineral, it's absorbed really well. But it's not the same thing because this is done by nature and it's much more complex. Whereas even with glycinate, it's still done in a vat, essentially. So when you take this product, there's something about it that I can speak to. I don't know whether it's the fermented, nicotinamide or, it's the phycocyanin, but you can feel something on a cellular level that I think has a lot to do with the minerals. And you know why I think that, Joel? Because I love the Hydrate product by Vicera, has the
Mhm.
same stuff in it. Sometimes I take that product and I just feel like my cells are humming. So, maybe it's just me, but I think that that is one of the greatest innovations that we are contributing to the problem of the energy crisis is by delivering the base layer of how our physiology is able to scale up its function, right? And be able to really express enzyme activity at a level that your body was designed for, which is way beyond what most people are experiencing today.
Yeah, so ultimately, these minerals that are bound to these amino acids, these little some short protein chains are basically taking it and shuttling it inside the cell. It's very difficult to get minerals inside the cell to where they can activate all of the chemical reactions that lead to the production of ATP or to the production of energy. So, for example, the methylated B vitamins need minerals in order to activate certain reactions. And so we're putting that in the cell because it's coming from nature. It's coming from the natural intelligence that kind of governs this world is creating this. And then we're putting it in the supplement so you can utilize that intelligence to upregulate your energy production. That's essentially what's happening here. So it's such a beautiful thing when you look at whole food supplements versus other supplements. And also I think we have to also mention just the fact that you're not going to find any chemicals in here at all, not in any way, shape, or form, not in the capsule, not in any stabilizers, in any, make to make it last longer on the shelf. You're not going to find any chemicals in here at all. Like this is the name of the supplement line is called Regenerate because we're using ultimately products that come from regenerative organic farms, right? That are healing the earth, that are healing the microbiome of the earth, that are healing the plants, that are healing the whole mushroom layer and mycelium of the earth, that are healing the plants, that are healing the farmer, and ultimately we're using that to heal ourselves. So it's this like absolutely beautiful, I want to say near perfect cycle that's really intended, I think, in nature to help heal our bodies. And and not just heal, but allow them to work properly. Like you should, we have boundless and unlimited energy through the mitochondria. And I know you could speak to this, Sarah, because you write about this in in the book Regenerate, about how we have these little like thunderbolts of lightning called the mitochondria, which create energy, and they're literally like the amount of energy is like lightning bolts that we have. So we have boundless energy, but our lifestyles, the stresses we put ourselves under, the foods we eat, the chemicals, the plastics, the everything kind of dampen that your ability to create it. So we're basically giving you all of the resources that you need in
Yeah.
methylate blue to create the best possible energy for yourself.
It's so profound because in Regenerate, my book, I started looking into this. And the fact is that if you look at the electric field that runs across the membrane, which is the mitochondrial inner membrane, it's only 5 nanometers thick. So what that means is that the energy is on the order of 30 million volts per meter. So it's not a figure of speech. That's actually peer-reviewed, measurement that's been published, and it puts the field inside your mitochondria in the same intensity range as a lightning bolt. And so what that means to me is, like, I've always been fascinated by these Shaolin warriors, right? Well, they'll literally take like a sharp sword or spear and they'll try to put it into the like neck or body of one of these monks, and it completely resists. And it's not a gimmick. I mean, there's real force and sharpness there. And it turns out that there's another study, and I might just write about this in depth, is that showed that the healthy cell membrane has the tensile strength of steel. So how is that possible? Well, if you have a lightning bolt worth of energy in just a mitochondria, and there are quadrillions of these things within your body, if they're functioning at their full state, it makes sense to me, you know? So when you say this, like, it's a literal thing. Like, this is not like pseudoscience. This is actually very standard science. It just is a fact that our body is this miracle. And it is a miracle. Every day I wake up, you know how many, like one study showed that we consume a credit card worth of plastic every week because microplastics are everywhere, right? Consider what your body has to go through every day with the exposures. And that's not even talking about the electromagnetic pollution and toxicity. And somehow every day we're pretty much still functioning and recovering. And that regenerative process, which is why we created this brand, Regenerate, is what we're honoring and helping to further optimize with formulas that are designed so you're not, getting a quick fix, and you're actually repairing and restoring the blueprint of health, which is available to us all. And you, Joelle, of all people, because you've helped teach me that as well, you're a chiropractor, and isn't Palmer's whole philosophy consistent with this? I'm curious what you'd have to say about that.
Well, how so? Yeah, for sure it is. I mean, ultimately, the ultimate philosophy is that there's this universal intelligence in all matter that allows that matter to exist, right? And so it's like this is an example of using the that innate intelligence, that innate force that creates these not the supplements, but that creates the food we then extract it to use for our cells' benefits. Right. And that's why when we talk about peptide powered minerals, those peptide powered minerals get into the cell where most minerals that people buy, they'll get into the gut, right? That some might get absorbed into the bloodstream, but very few of them ever actually get into the cell because of the form, because it's like you're taking, most calcium comes from shaved rock. Like when you buy
Mm,
calcium at the store, it's coming from shaved rock, and they're putting that in a supplement, and then you're expected to use this. Well, that's not food for your body. So your body knows that that's not the intelligent form of calcium that it wants to use. And so it'll put that, it'll try and store that outside the cell. It'll cause plaquing in the arteries. It'll cause a clogging in different tubes in your body. And so your body wants to avoid and get rid of that stuff, as opposed to using calcium from plants or some that you find in meats, for example, right? Your body will utilize that readily and properly because there is something called, I like to call it nutrient intelligence, right? And your
mhm.
body has that intelligence to know which nutrients it needs where, as long as it happens naturally and not synthesized in a vat in a chemical lab, right? And that's why we've taken great care to have whole food supplements that we share with people because we understand that, right?
100%. Absolutely. And, you know, like I've been a student of herbalism for some time, and it's well known that the chemistries of the plant, which are complex, like if you look at turmeric, there's thousands of, chemical compounds that are working in tandem. But the reality is that when they try to break those plants
They
down into
isolate.
yeah, they isolate. It's the
Yeah.
nutraceutical or pharmaceutical monochemical magic bullet philosophy. They aren't able to get it to work the way the whole plant does, even when there's much lower levels of
Yeah.
the so-called ingredient. And that's because the total plant has itself this energetic field, which you could even call an informational field, and it's what directs the chemistries into the proper place. And that's why, for example, with our vitamins, spirulina, peptide-based minerals, the intelligence is built in. And that's why the
Yeah.
company's whole motto is ancient intelligence, because no matter how fancy we get, and there are benefits to nutraceutical approaches, you
It does
still
say
need
angel intelligence right there, that little circle
exactly.
right there.
Yeah, that's the old AI, right? It is
Yeah.
truly a meta intelligence that suffuses all things, and that is what we brought to the company from the farm that's a regeneratively certified farm that's called Heal the Planet, where the products are literally made, which is also taking old land that was abused, that has completely regenerated using ancient practices that respect the ecosystem and the animals being part of it and helping to restore the land. I don't think if we were doing this in a conventional way, I don't think the product would have the healing effects that it and I feel does have for me. And that's because the energy is as essential as the specific ingredients. So, Joelle, I'd love for you to tell me more about your first experience with methylate blue, because my first experience was within the first dose. I was like, whoa, what just happened? And then I was like, wait, is this like niacin flush? And I didn't even realize it was the methylate blue causing this wave of enhanced energy. I think it's a combination, obviously, but I think it was the fermented nicotinamide that I was feeling like almost immediately. So tell me about your experience because I think yours was even more sustained.
Yeah, well, and that's why I feel like it's important to share my experience here
Uh,
because it's certainly not like taking a caffeine where there's a peak and a crash. I feel like there's been like this sustained energy throughout the day where it's like just this kind of strong silent power where you don't feel like a peak and a bottom. You just feel this strong energy throughout the day where it's like it's not dying off. I'm not feeling tired. I'm not needing a break. I'm not like my brain is on all day when I'm taking this stuff. And it's been, months now that I've been taking it, a few months for sure, maybe 3 months now that we've
uh,
been taking this. And I just absolutely love it. And of course, I love going out in the sun after understanding that there's the chlorophyll, the phycocyanin, where I'm absorbing wavelengths better when I'm out in the sun. So, I mean, all of those things, and maybe that part is more of a psychosomatic effect. I don't know, but I don't care because I know it's there, and I know there's research that supports that. So I love it, and I feel like if people are feeling fatigued, if people have brain fog, if people are just feeling like they need to nap every day, if people feel like, the postprandial like after eating, you feel like exhausted and like you're having trouble keeping your eyes open, trouble focusing, reading a book, or whatever the case is where you need brain energy and brain power. I feel this is a really elegant solution to get to the root cause of fatigue. And again, fatigue's just a symptom. It's not a disease process, it's just a symptom saying that, hey, your mitochondria aren't producing enough ATP for you to sustain your level of focus that you need, the level of energy output that you need. And when you provide the right ingredients, then it does. And this provides the right ingredients.
Yeah, and one thing I love too, and I would encourage everyone who's going to experiment with it, is that when you take it, remember to go outside, or if you have a red light, or maybe you use the Mitalux, consider that you're going to have a synergistic effect because it was
Yeah.
built to capture photodynamic effects and help to enhance them. But the real point is actually to get outside, put your bare feet on the ground, go for a walk, know that your body at least has the kind of support from the inside out that nature intended for you to have. And maybe it's a reminder to include more green foods in your diet and do other things that are going to support a lifestyle where you have a more sustained energy and are less inclined to make decisions that ultimately cause you to feel completely exhausted and your productivity actually never is enhanced. It's a false promise. Now, I will say this because I am definitely somebody who takes things to extremes. Like if I'm working, yeah, there's days where I have two, three coffees, right? But I will say what those days where I start to catch myself and I'm like, well, let me take methylate blue to get that effect, I was less inclined to want to continue that cycle. So for me, this is a product that personally is really helpful for me because I do have sometimes an addictive tendency, right? To do habitual caffeination and things that are just not in my best interest. And so this is also a good balance for those people that are trying to transition. It doesn't mean you have to go all or
Yes.
nothing, you know?
I so agree with that, sir, because so many people are addicted and they don't even know. They think that just one coffee a day is like, oh, it's just one a day. But they need that coffee to get to like starting their day. Otherwise, they can't function properly. If you're that type of person and you want to challenge yourself maybe to like use healthier forms of energy like methylate blue, then I would highly encourage you to start the process, start using, and then start lowering your caffeine intake, start lowering your sugar intake, start lowering your nicotine intake, whatever it is, your methylene blue intake, and you'll see that this will help replace it because it gets to the fundamental underlying cause of fatigue or the need for more energy.
Yeah, I'll say this too, before we close up, is that, there's a whole new way of looking at what the primary ailments are that afflict humanity. Like if it's type 3 diabetes, right? That's one of the ways to describe dementia and Alzheimer's in some cases. The brain metabolically isn't producing enough energy. And after years of the sort of like roller coaster of sugar and caffeine and alcohol and nicotine, at some point the neurons in the brain just give up, right? Well, this is one of the approaches where when I've taken methylene blue, I will say this, I have energy that's not coming from my food. So I'm less inclined, to consume food habitually. And I think that's because most of us are just dying for sustained fuel because when you have the high insulin, high cortisol from that lifestyle, what happens invariably is you go on this roller cycle where you crash and the brain can only live 2, 3 minutes before it completely freaks out without adequate fuel. And usually, because of a lack of metabolic flexibility, people are adapted to carbohydrates. So, when you start to feed the mitochondria and get that energy at the root level, you'll find it's easier to let go of some of the lifestyle dietary addictions that aren't really serving you much easier. So that's one of the side benefits, I'll say, even for myself. Like today and yesterday, actually, I mean, I am in Mount Shasta right now and it's beautiful. I barely ate, and I don't know what the combinations are, but I will say that this product has done quite a lot for me. And we're here to share that with the world. That's why we created the product. We hope that this truly delivers to you solutions and
Yeah.
improves your quality of life the way we've experienced it. And I can't really say more than that. That's the whole point of this. So, Joelle, any closing remarks?
Well, yeah, my closing remark is very simple to the people who know Sayer and I, especially Sayer, who's been around for so long. He's been very reluctant over the years because I've been telling him like the messages we get from everybody at Green Med Info is like, just tell me what to take. I want to take the stuff that you recommend because I know the attention to detail that you have, right? And he's been very reluctant to create his own product or our own product in this case. Because nothing's really met the standard. So we've always recommended good products, but we would never put our name on anything that is not excellent. And so that's why we feel so compelled to share this with everybody is because every detail, like at every level of the mitochondria that we've looked at in the case of methylate blue, we feel has been taken care of to the best of our ability. And so just know that you're going to get something where we've poured our heart and souls into. We've poured, 20 years of research on Sayer's behalf into, and, similar to me as well, just dealing with patients for 26 years, that we're pouring our heart and souls into this. And so we hope you love it. We hope you try it. Just let us know what you think. Obviously, I think there'll be a link below where you're going to get a really compelling discount in order to try it for the first time. And then let us know how it works for you. Let us know the different feelings that you have, and what it does for you, what it does for your brain, what it does for your focus, what it does for your energy levels, and what it does, because of that for your relationships and your work and all the fun stuff that you do in your life. Because I know that if you experience it like we have, that you'll see a really positive difference in your life.
Beautiful. I couldn't say it better than you, Joel. Thank you so much, everyone who has been part of this journey with us. And, we're just starting. There's much more coming. We have some pretty amazing announcements coming soon. So, again, we really appreciate you. We really hope this delivers similar results for you. And like Joel said, we'd love to hear your feedback. So, thanks again.
All right. Thank you, everybody.